is everyone today? My name is Mira Morton, aka the Bossy Coach, and I am a general life coach who is certified by the Life Coach School. And I have a full time job working as a lobbyist for the California Children's Hospital Association and also a small coaching practice that I do on my evenings and weekends. And over the last few months, I have been partnering with Women in Data. They have graciously invited me into your community. And I do live coaching calls twice a month for the women in that community who are paid members of the community. And we coach on all things business, promotions, work life balance, and then everything that happens at home too, relationships with family and friends and spouses and kids, and all the things that come up in life that affect our ability to show up the way we want to show up at work. And I'm grateful to be here today to talk to you all. And I spent a fair amount of time thinking about what it is that I would want to bring as a subject today. And I brought a subject that may not exactly be the kind of thing that you thought was what you wanted help on. But I actually think this is one of the most prevalent issues that comes up in our lives, which is this idea that we give away our power to other people, and learning how to reclaim our power that we normally are giving to other people into circumstances outside of ourselves and kind of bringing it home, and reclaiming it is, I think, the single most critical thing that you could do in order to not only feel better, but actually to just accomplish more in your life. Because often when we are giving our power to other people, we really limit our potential, give our power to other situations as well. Like we decide that our boss or the patriarchy or our spouse or our parents or whatever it is are the reasons that we can't get certain things done. It causes us to hold ourselves back and not see all the things that actually we still could do to get those things done that we want to have happen in our lives. So what it fundamentally looks like when you give away your power is that you are putting other people and other things and other events in charge of your own happiness and in charge of what you can accomplish in your life. And when you do this, it makes you blind to all of the choices that you still have and all of the things that you still have control over, right? You put all of your attention on the things that you don't have control over and miss the opportunities to affect the things that you do have control over. So it's really perspective limiting when you give your power away. And any human, I think the most fundamental thing that we care about and that makes us feel good is knowing that we have choices, knowing that we have control over our own destiny. So when you are in the habit of giving away your power, and in fact don't even realize that that's what you're doing, you are giving away your fundamental sense of empowerment and your sense of okayness as a human. So as we go through this, you'll start to see, oh, this is ways that I'm giving away my power. And just know that as you start to learn to turn that around for yourself, you can really just fundamentally shift the way you view your life, and you'll start to accelerate your ability to accomplish your goals. So if you are ambitious, which I know most of you are, then you really want to be able to claim your power back and take responsibility for all the things you have influence over, and really shift it away from thinking about all the things you don't have influence over. That's what I'm going to show you how to do today. So I've started to allude to it, but what does it actually mean to give away your power? And in order to tell you that, I'm going to introduce you to a tool, the most powerful tool that I have as a life coach, which is the model. And this is Brooke Castillo's tool from the Life Coach School. So all of us who are certified get to use it. And it's just a really, I think, powerful way to think about what's going on in your life. And CETFAR is what the model basically looks like. But what it comes down to is that everything in your life can be categorized as one of these 5 things. Everything, every person, everything that goes on fits into the model in one of these spaces. Circumstances are the things in your life that are essentially out of your control. So they are the things that happen. They are other people's actions, other people's words, acts of forces of nature, right? So wildfires and earthquakes and hurricanes and bad weather, alarm clocks that didn't go off and we oversleep, right? Like those are just circumstances, right? And people dying, like all sorts of things can be circumstances. And they are the things that are out of control. They just happen. Some of them we experience as positive, some of them we experience as negative, but really they just are. Like the world is just made up of things going on around us because we're surrounded by other people. We don't have any control over this. Everything else we have control over, right? So we have thoughts about our circumstances. This is the relationship between all of these things. Circumstances arise, we have a thought about it. That thought will determine how we feel, right? Feelings or emotions are your body's reaction to a thought that you're having, right? And even that may be a little mind blowing for some of you. You may not have known that, but it's true. If you're feeling depressed, you're having a thought that's making you feel depressed, right? That's how your body tells you what you're thinking is how you're feeling. How you feel, what emotion you're experiencing will determine how you act every time, right? Now, you may be having lots of thoughts, lots of feelings. So there'll be the dominant one that will determine this. But one of the interesting things, right, is sometimes in our lives, we are like, oh, I really want to, say, for example, you wanted to get back to the gym and build the fitness routine. And so you're like, okay, I'm going to do this. It's going to make me skinny, going to lose my holiday weight. And so you set out your shoes and you renew your gym membership and you get all your stuff set out, you set your alarm, and the alarm goes off in the morning and you're just like, I just can't do it, right? You can't convince yourself to get up and go to the gym. And then this happens like day after day. And then you're like, what's going on? Like, I know I want to go to the gym. Like, I want to lose the weight. I'm tired of my pants being tight. Why won't I just freaking get up? Like, why can't I make myself do it? And you may start to decide that it's like a character flaw. What's actually happening is that you're having another thought other than the one that says, I want to go to the gym and I want to lose weight. And that thought is creating a feeling that's undermining your action line, right? And sometimes it shows up for folks as like you've worked out a lot before, you've had exercise routines before, and you never manage to keep them up, or you always end up injured, and so it never really works. Or maybe you can lose 5 pounds through exercise, but you're never going to be able to lose all the weight that you want to lose. So what's the point, right? And you have this kind of underlying belief that, like, what's the point of doing that? And when you feel that, when you think that thought, what's the point, you feel defeated. And the action is you hit snooze, you go back to bed, you don't go to the gym, you can't make yourself do it. So whenever you notice that your actions aren't aligning with what you say it is that you want to accomplish, you know you have a thought problem up here that's messing up the action that you're taking. And the actions that you take are what creates the results in your lives. People and other things don't create results in your lives. You do through what you think, feel, act. Okay. And you will create results based on these other elements. So all of these things here are within your control. You want to have your attention on those things as often as you can. Whenever your attention is up here on your circumstances and you're fighting with your circumstance, complaining about your circumstance, wishing it was something different, wrestling with it, you are giving your power to your circumstance and you're taking it away from yourself by not putting your attention on the things that you actually have influence over. Okay, coming back. So the nice thing about knowing this is that it allows you to start to refocus and reclaim responsibility for how you think, feel, act, and what you create in your life. When you don't do those things, when you keep all of your attention on the circumstances and you fight with them, it leaves you at the mercy of other people. And we often call this victim mentality. And a lot of us spend a lot of time in victim mentality with all of our awareness focused on the ways other people are limiting our options, right? And we experience it as a lack of choice, right? That, well, I can't do that because this other person, right? I only have one option. They are the one that's constraining my options. And as a result, you end up feeling kind of stuck, stagnant. You can be resentful of the other person, and your life just in general feels out of your control. So if you feel like your life is living you, if everybody else determining where you're going, then you are giving away your power. That's a good sign that you're giving away your power and that you can start to change the way you view your life and look for ways in which you can control your thoughts, feelings, actions, and results in order to get more of the life that you want. And also, if you find yourself constantly trying to change others, that's another indication that you are giving your power away to those people. Or you may be a person, right? Some people feel like, well, I thought this job was going to be better than the other job, and it's not. I'm now having the same problem, and then you switch jobs. Or like, I thought this car was going to make me happy and solve all my problems, but it turns out that this car has other problems too, and then you get another car, right? So if you're a person who's constantly changing your circumstances, then you know that you're giving your power to your circumstances. These are all kind of indicators. So the thing that's so important to know here is that some of you may actually be successful at having coerced people into changing a little bit for you, right? That we have this idea that if I nag, if I complain, if I push, if I pressure, that I can get people to do things. And sometimes it works, but it never works because you are in control of their behavior. What happens is that you cause them to have a thought that, God, it would be more pleasant to just do what this person wants than to be harassed by them endlessly, right? So then they choose to do what you want. But it is a very limited effectiveness. And in general, the more time that you're spending trying to change your circumstances, change your reality, and change other people, the more frustrated, exhausted, and resentful you will be. So if you find yourself constantly feeling resentful or frustrated by life, know that that is a strong indication that you are giving away your power to things outside of you, right? You always have choices. So this is another way that it will show up, is that we start feeling like, I don't have any choice. I have to do this. Like, I have to cook dinner for all the kids. And so of course I'm tired, because by the time I get all that done and all three of the kids want something different to eat, like, it's just terrible, right? And again, we're kind of putting the kids and their different tastes in charge. When you turn it back and bring your power home, you start to realize, I don't actually have to cook dinner for anyone. Like, there are parents who don't cook for their kids, and I could be one of them. Like, there may be reasons that I'm choosing to cook for my kids, even though they're picky and everybody wants something different. It takes a lot of my time. It makes me tired. Like, I'm choosing to do it at the end of the day. So why am I choosing to do it? And then, do I want to continue? So this is a way of reclaiming your power. So noticing and just reminding yourself, I always have choices. So if I don't feel like I have one now, it's because of how I'm looking at it, and I'm giving my power to something, either a person or a situation. And I will just kind of close here by saying, it's not that things don't get handed to you. Like, life really does hand us lemonade sometimes. Things happen that suck, right? Circumstances don't all feel good, and you may want to feel frustrated or annoyed or completely horrified by circumstances that show up in your life. So it's not that that isn't true. It's, where is your attention? Because the more your attention is focused on this thing that you can't do anything about, the more powerless you feel and the less you are going to do with your life. And the moment you pivot to, like, okay, it sucks for sure, but what can I do? Like, how do I want to react to it? How do I want to think and feel about it? And what do I want to do about it now that it's been presented to me? That is where you gain that feeling of empowerment. That's where you start to see all of the choices that you have, and you will really start to be able to move your life forward and instantly feel some relief from whatever it is that you're experiencing. So some other ways to kind of just recognize whether you're giving away your power, I think these are just kind of like quick tips. First one is, if you're finding yourself saying things like, until this person changes, I can't do X, Y, and Z, or I can't do it because this person isn't doing their piece of it, right? When you're really focused on what the other person is or isn't doing, and that they're doing it wrong, instead of you and what you can be doing, you're giving your power away to the person. Sometimes we do the same thing with situations. So the situation is the reason that I can't do X, Y, or Z. Like, if the kids didn't all have different tastes, then blah, 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 and I didn't have to cook dinner, then I would have time to study in the evening and get myself to be more qualified for the promotion that I want. That's an example of giving your power to your children, which I don't recommend doing because little kids don't make great decisions for us, right? But when you find yourself phrasing things for yourself in that way, you're giving your power to other people. And then also, we do it sometimes by saying, I need someone to help me figure something out. Anytime you say, I don't know, you are giving your power away, because you are turning your attention away from the answers that you do have within you. There may be things you don't know, but there are always things you do know. And when you focus on what you do know, instead of what you don't know, you start to be able to make decisions and take action and move forward. And if you are polling other people in order to make big decisions about your life, that's always going to get you places you don't really want to be, because no one knows what's better for you than you do. Like, you are in the best position to make decisions about your own life. No one else is. I will talk briefly about the difference between asking a coach, because certainly a lot of people come to me. We're going to go through some examples, and it's very common for people to come to me in the Women in Data coaching calls and ask me what I think they should be doing and how do they go about getting another job. What I will tell you the difference is that when you have a good coach, right, who's been properly trained, we don't tell you what you should do. We help you understand what your choices are, right? We show you where your power is. And we help you figure out what you want and what process you're using to make the decision. Because we will use all sorts of weird ways of, reasons to make decisions that don't really serve us. And when we start to understand, like, oh, that's how I'm making it, first of all, no wonder it doesn't feel good to try to make the decision. And if I make it from that place, I'm apt to end up with a decision that I don't like. That can become really helpful and clarifying for people. So as a coach, that's always what I'm doing. I'm never telling somebody what action they have to take. I'm helping them figure out what their options are, and I'm helping them think about, how do I want to be thinking about and making this decision so that it's the most likely to lead to something that I'm going to be happy with in the end. When you go to friends and families and coworkers and strangers and you start asking them opinions, they literally will just tell you what they think you should do, but it's always based on their own life experience. It's based on who they are. It's based on their perception of you. It's never based on you and what's best for you in your life. No one can know that better than you. So it's very dangerous when you start polling people. I actually, one time on Facebook, I had a family member who was asking people like whether she should have children. And I was like, that seems like an interesting thing to ask other people's opinions on. Now, what she ended up getting from that, right, was a lot of people's thoughts about children and the trade-offs that we make when we have them. And then she could kind of pick and choose among them and have that help her think about the decision. So it's not like the end of the world. It wasn't like if somebody said have children or don't, she was going to have them or not. She was using it to kind of inform her decision. But you want to be really careful when you're polling people. That is almost always a sign that you are giving your power away and bringing it back home and being like, what do I think I want to be doing? Do I think I'm qualified to do it? What do I know about how to get that done? That is always the best and strongest position from which to be moving forward. Okay. All right. So I want to give you some examples of what this looks like in practice. And I'm going to give you some business examples, I think, that will reflect some of the things that I see often in coaching women in data. So we're going to go through an example of what it looks like when you give your power away, and then we're going to go through an example of when you reclaim your power, and you can kind of see how it plays out differently and why I think reclaiming your power is so important. So patriarchy, right? Sexism in data science. I think these are things that we often get very frustrated about. They come up a lot for some of you out there. You feel like the way that society views women and the qualities that they think women have make us somehow less qualified to be in the field of data science. So let's say that you have a male colleague that gets a promotion that you wanted. You could have a thought about it that the system is rigged against women, or he got the job because he was the man, I'm just as qualified, I'm more qualified. Whatever the thought is, it basically boils down to the system is rigged against women. And when you think the thought, the system is rigged against women, you feel victimized by the system and you feel powerless in it, right? Which is the weakest place you could possibly be acting from. It's like a terrible, and it feels terrible to be feeling victimized and powerless. But that's what this thought creates, right? And it's focusing on the system, this thing outside of you. Sexism is real, it exists. It does keep women from opportunities. It does make it harder for women to climb up. I'm not going to tell you that it's not a real thing. What matters here is that when your attention is on it and you're spending a lot of time thinking the system is rigged, you feel victimized and powerless, and then you show up in a way that really doesn't serve you, right? So you end up resenting your male colleagues, right? You may end up resenting your boss. You may end up resenting like not only the person that got the promotion, but like everybody else, that they're all kind of, it's unfair. And they're in some way, you just are like growling at them in your mind in meetings, right? It makes you less friendly. It makes you less communicative. You might raise your hand less in meetings. You might put ideas out less because you're kind of like, what's the point? The system is rigged. It's kind of similar to the going to the gym example. So it causes you to show up in a super different way. The other thing that happens is when we have a belief, our brain's job, it will go about finding evidence that that belief is true. So you will start to see more evidence that the system is rigged, and you won't see evidence that it's not, right? Because there's usually always evidence of both. Like, yes, it's rigged, and so maybe there's fewer opportunities or it's harder, but there's still opportunities, right? But when your attention is on it being rigged, you won't see the opportunities that are there, and you won't be able to take advantage of them because your brain will be looking for all the evidence that it is rigged. You also won't see evidence that that colleague was qualified, right? You'll miss that. You'll be really focused on the things about him that you think make him not good enough. And like, what if he ends up being your boss? So now you're like resentful of your boss and you think that he sucks at something. That's not going to help you move forward in your career. It's not going to make going to work pleasant. It also causes you to miss ways that you can strengthen your own portfolio and your own skill set to maximize the chance that you get the next job. Like, okay, I didn't get this one, but so help me, I'm getting the next one. You can't get there if you're spending your time thinking that the system is rigged and feeling powerless and victimized by it. So it's not that it isn't rigged. It's what you're going to be thinking about. How do I want to think about the fact that I do live in a system that's sexist? Or maybe I'm working for a company where there is sexism. When I spend all my time thinking about this, I end up reinforcing the belief that it's rigged, and I hold myself back from opportunities that do exist for me to move myself forward and basically just deprive myself of the very thing that I want. If we look at this example differently from reclaiming our power, we have the same thing. Male colleague gets a promotion, but instead this time we think, if I truly believe that this was sexism, then I have two choices. One, I can either leave the company and go to a company that I think is going to provide me with more opportunities and be more fair and help women develop their careers, or I can stay here because I have other reasons that I like it here and just make myself so irresistible that they could not promote me next time. Like they just will have to, right? But that's it. And you may not like those options. You may like the company and a lot of things about the company that you're in and like want it to be less sexist, but that's not one of the things you get to control. Your company is what your company is, right? There may be kind of incremental ways you can work on sexism in your company, but it's probably not going to be this big transformative thing that like all of a sudden you get promoted, right? So you don't have control over that element. So you don't like your choices. You are not entitled to like your choices. It's the crappy news I have for you today. Sometimes what you end up with is a bunch of choices that are not ideal. None of them are the things you would have picked in the world if you got to pick, but they're what you have. But you always have choices. And so even when you don't like them, just knowing that you have them and then choosing it actively instead of feeling like it's been forced upon you will make all the difference in how you feel about it. And as soon as you realize these are my choices, what do I want to do about it? You feel empowered, even if you're a little bit pissed off that these are your choices and that there's sexism in the world. And I think it's good to be pissed off about things in the world that, are unfair and that we want to make better, right? Because we'll start working on them. But in between being pissed off, we want to be spending time in empowerment, or we just won't create the things in our life that we really want. When you're feeling empowered, you will remind yourself of your worth and your value. You will start thinking about all the things that you have to offer an employer, be it this one or the next one, which will put you in a better position to be able to go sell yourself to the next employer. It will also kind of put you in a position where you're willing to look at, where are my skill gaps? Where are things that if I strengthen them, I will increase the odds that I get the next promotion? What is the work that I can do? Because what happens is when you go here, you turn your attention away from the things outside of you and back into you, and you start working on you. And that is where you make things possible for yourself, is when you're working on you. When you're working on other people and trying to change them and trying to change the world, you get very frustrated. And when you work on you, you make progress, right? You acknowledge the sexism, but you don't focus on it. That is critical. Like that is the difference. And then as a result, you get the job you want, whether it's the next one that comes up in your company because you've now made yourself completely irresistible, or you go to another company where the opportunities are more readily available to you. But you get what you want when you come from a place of empowerment. In order to get that, you have to be thinking about you instead of thinking about all the things outside of you that you can't control. So let's walk through one more example just to kind of show you again in a different way how this plays. And again, I went to promotions, but this time it's the promotional opportunity. So there's something that shows up. And I would say almost every time we have a women in data call, it's somebody trying to figure out, am I qualified for that opportunity? Or I know that there's a thing I ultimately want to get to. How do I get myself qualified for that? So this is a pretty common one, I know, for those of you out there. What I see a lot is people saying, I don't know if I'm qualified, right? So they come to me, who doesn't know them at all, to figure out if they're qualified, right? So you can see how it's a little silly, but we do this all the time. And in the life coaching world, this phrase, I don't know, like, is not allowed, right? It comes out of our mouths all the time. We insist on saying it, but then we know, like when I'm getting coached by another life coach, I'm not allowed to say, I don't know. I don't get away with that. The reason it's such a problem is when we say, I don't know, we close off ourselves to all of our wisdom. Like there is so much that we know, even when there are things that we don't. And as soon as we say, I don't know, we don't have access to any of it, like none of our wisdom. And we are giving away our power because we're like, the knowing is out there. Somebody else has the answers. I don't have the answers. And then that puts us in that position of polling others, asking other people, feeling uncertain, waiting for clarity to arise from somewhere, right? There's something I can do to create more clarity. So I don't know is poison. It creates this feeling of uncertainty. And then what happens when we feel uncertain is we start asking other people if they think that we should apply. Like, okay. I don't know if that's helpful. Like, what if they want the job and they don't want us to apply because they think that we're competing with them? We think about how everyone is more qualified than us. We start comparing ourselves to other people and trying to measure our qualifications on others. So again, turning our attention outwards, away from us, giving our power to others instead of bringing our attention home to ourselves. We don't sit down and just think about like, okay, what are the qualifications of that job? Like what's in the job description, but also what do I know that I would need to be able to do if I wanted to do that job? And then how many of those skills do I have? How many of those skills do I think I could cultivate in the time that I have? Or like, okay, I could get up to speed really quickly. We don't think about any of that. Like none of that stuff occurs to us. Instead, we're just focused on how other people have criteria, like qualifications that we don't have, whether or not they're relevant to the job. And we fret about whether we should apply. And in a lot of cases, people actually don't, right? Like you hold yourself back completely from the opportunities that are out there because you cannot decide that you have the answer. And as a result, you never decide that you're qualified. Okay, this is the result you will always get from I don't know, is that you will continue to not know because you will never put your brain to work on the actual things that will get you the answers that you want. And even if other people tell you things to do, they will never be organically from you. They will never be a perfect fit for who you are and what's right for you. So they never serve you the way that the answers that you get from yourself do. So let's look at what happens when we take our power back in this situation. So now we have the promotional opportunity and we instead think, I have the ability to figure out if I'm qualified enough that I want to apply. Like I have that answer, I just need to go figure it out. When we think that thought that I have the ability to figure it out, we feel confident. And when we feel confident, we're like, okay, if I did know, how would I go about figuring that out? I would make a list of all the skills that you need in order to be able to do the job. I would see whether I have them. I would decide what enough means. Because ultimately, qualified enough, like just go apply for the job, people. Like you are always qualified enough to apply. You may not get the job, you may not get an interview, but what the hell? Like if you think that you could make a like straight-faced case for why somebody should hire you and why you bring something to the table, then like why not apply, right? You get to decide what enough means. And enough usually means I think I can sell it with a straight face. Like I believe in myself enough that I'm willing to go pitch myself to someone. But nobody can tell you that but you. Like that's it. There is no like measurable thing. And I will tell you another fun fact, since we're into the topic of sexism. I actually was told recently that men will apply for a job if they meet at least 20% of the criteria in the job description, and women won't apply unless they meet 100% of the criteria. So what we're deciding enough means is different than what men are deciding enough means. It's just a decision that you get to make. But you'll never make this decision if you're not feeling confident, right? If you're feeling uncertain, you can't decide what enough is to just go apply for the job. You start focusing on your skills and your strengths and the value that you offer, which is awesome because when you start thinking about, oh no, I have that skill, here's an example of that. Oh no, I have that strength, here's an example of it. That's actually what you need to be doing in order to show up in an interview with confidence and to really market yourself to the person who would be doing the hiring. So the work that you're doing now to figure out if you're qualified actually helps you show up to the interview and do a better job of getting the job for yourself. and you just decide whether you want to apply. You actually start making calls, making decisions, and taking action from them. So it's critical, like that shift in focus from I don't know to I have the ability to figure it out, even though it's not immediately obvious to me. All of a sudden, you move from uncertain to confident and you start making decisions and taking action. And you may not apply. You may decide, no, I actually want to go get this certification or spend a little bit more time studying and I'll go after the next one. Totally fine, right? But you won't even make that decision if you're sitting in this place of uncertainty. And so the result is, meaning you decide that you're qualified enough for the job or not, right? You may decide that you're not qualified enough that you're willing to apply for it. So I hope that these examples, let me try to pull the paper back. I hope that these examples have been helpful and they kind of give you a sense of what it means to give away your power. I will tell you that it shows up in a myriad of ways. And as we head into the holidays, for those of you who celebrate all of the different Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, the myriad of holidays that are coming, this is a time, even during the pandemic, I think a lot of us are still getting together with families. And I find that we give away a lot of power to our families, right? We get angry at partners who don't help clean or decorate or who aren't good cooks or just don't care about the whole thing the way we care about it. We give power away to our mothers who come over and, criticize us and tell us we're not doing enough or we're trying to make everything perfect to them. And what happens when we have all of our attention focused on all the other people is we just suck the joy out of the event for ourselves, right? You can't like it because you're constantly trying to please someone else. You're constantly focused on what it is that they would want and trying to figure out if you measure up. And so we do this to ourselves in so many ways. And I think in particular at the holidays, we really can just kind of torture ourselves by giving our power or our attention to those other people instead of to ourselves. So I invite you as you kind of head into the next few weeks to think about what is it that I want? Like, what is it that will make this fun for me? If you're thinking about a job opportunity or you're thinking about career growth or what your personal goals are going to be for 2021, really be careful and watch, like, where is your attention focused? Is it focused on what you think other people are doing, that you can't have certain things unless other things come into alignment? Then you're really missing opportunities. Like, you always will fail to see things when your attention is focused on those things outside of you. And instead, you can start to think about your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, and your results, and start to figure out where your choices are and where your power is to create the life that you want. It really is a magical transformation. And if you're intrigued by this and you're wondering how it might affect some decision that you're trying to make or someplace you want to go, I urge you, if you're not already a paid member of Women in Data, to join. We do regular coaching calls in there, and I can certainly help you start to figure out how you make decisions and how you're thinking about the world, and maybe help you reframe it, right? That often is the harder work, is figuring out how else we could be thinking about it. Also know that you can find me on Facebook at Mira Morton. I also have thebossycoach.com, and certainly send me an email, reach out to me. I'd be happy to help you and talk with you if you're interested in becoming an individual client. But I think this work is completely magical and can change everything. And I think even though this may not have been the topic that you thought, this is what I need to know about, I think you can have the biggest bang for your buck if you can just learn to start reframing your life for yourself in a way where you're always focused on your responsibility, your choices, your ability to influence things, and just let go of the stuff that you can't, right? You can sit there and you can mourn it and you can grieve it and be frustrated that the world isn't fair and that things happen in it that are really hard. But then don't spend a ton of time there, right? Let yourself go through that process. Let yourself sit in it as long as you need to. And then when you're ready, be like, okay, what do I want to do about it? World is unfair. Bad things happen in it. Who do I want to be in it? And how do I want to show up knowing that that is how the world works? Because you're never going to win your fight against reality. Lose it 100% of the time. All right, take care, everyone. I hope you found this helpful. I'll talk to you soon. Happy holidays.